Hey everybody, it's Magic Prepper, and I just wanted to talk to you about the fact that I feel like we're running out of time. There's a lot of uncertainty in the air, and there's a lot of forces working against us, those of us who want to be prepared, around the world right now. We have to understand that we're running out of time to get the things done that we need to get done before this whole thing collapses. Now, there's something you definitely need to pay attention to. Right now, the national debt is at $29.7 trillion, which is a ridiculous amount of money, right? It's larger than the economies of China, Japan, Germany, the UK, and India combined. So that just puts it into perspective about how much money we actually owe in debt as a nation. Now, the other thing that you want to consider is that equates to $223,000 per household, or $87,000 per person. Now, that's debt that can never be repaid, and we know that. But the thing that we also know is that the people who are in control of the economies around the world, and the people who control the money, don't care about this debt. It doesn't have any real existence to them. And one thing that they can do in order to make it seem less of an issue in the sense of defaulting on your debt in the future is to raise inflation. Yes, inflation can be used as a tool to devalue or debase the dollar, which then actually devalues and debases the debt that is owed, and suddenly the problem is solved without having to raise taxes or cut spending. So it's obviously something that those who are in charge are totally okay with. But the issue is that it hurts both you and I exponentially. Inflation will hurt our ability to have a quality of life, our ability to prepare, our ability to acquire the things that we need. And in many ways, prepping is about getting a little bit of extra. You got to have some surplus on hand if you want to be prepared for the different types of scenarios that could unfold for us here in the future. And it's impossible to acquire that surplus if every single dollar you spend has to go to bare necessity. And that is exactly the corner that we're being pushed into. And now with the empty shelf stories happening throughout mainstream media and pushing the idea that this is actually finally becoming an issue in the sense of things we've talked about for years now, the average person, the general public, is going to start catching on to what's going on here. And you can expect inflation to keep rising. You can expect people to go out, possibly panic buy, and you can expect supply to become even harder to come by. So this is why we're having this conversation right now, because time is limited. And if there's things that you need to get done, or things that you need to acquire, or things that you've been planning on taking care of but just haven't gotten around to yet, I definitely suggest you get those things done. Because with the state of the world right now, with the way things are going, the only way we can see this thing taking off at any point in time here is through more inflation and less supply. And we know that that's eventually going to grow into a ball of desperation that doesn't have an easy solution. And that's going to be a big problem for all of us, especially on the ground level, because I know I'm not rich. I'm sure many of you are not either. And it makes things very difficult when every single time you go to the grocery store, you have to spend a little bit more to get the same amount that you got last time. And eventually you're going to be spending a little bit more and even getting less. And that is when things get very difficult. So I wanted to have this conversation because in general, I always think that there's still time to start preparing. I think that people can begin prepping anytime, but the big issue is that if we're still putting things off, we're still waiting around for things to improve or whatever else it is that you have justified your reason for being patient, maybe it's time to stop being so patient. And maybe it's time to really get out there and make the things happen before everything that we're talking about now becomes either unobtainable or doesn't have any actual value to it. And that is a big thing we have to consider. Hopefully this conversation helped give you some motivation and gives you some ideas about where we really are. Because the only way to get out of this debt situation is to keep rising the inflation to the point where it makes the debt worthless. And at that point, what do you even owe?